In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Mark Twain was a very famous American writer and essayist, and among many of his works, many of us have had to read Tom Sawyer or Huckleberry Finn in our own schools and our own education. And so much so, he is so famous that many others, if the novelists that came after him, kind of copied his formula in all of the writings that they did if they ever wanted to write an American novel. Basically followed the same pattern as the adventures of Huckleberry Finn. But a little-known work by Mark Twain is actually the work that he's the proudest of, and that work is Joan of Arc. Right? Our saint just absolutely captivated Mark Twain. He spent many years of research looking into her. He actually traveled to France to look at the transcripts of her trial, right, of her trial before her death before the English. And he just absolutely fell in love with this saint, right? The secular man, the secular writer, was very much captivated by Saint Joan of Arc. And it is a very captivating story. Right? You have this 15-year-old French peasant girl, and she's receiving mystical visions from Saint Michael the Archangel, telling her to lead the French armies into battle, to drive out the English out of her country. And so, it's surprising, it's very much out of the ordinary, but then she goes to the king, and the king actually gives her control of his armies. Right? So also very much a miracle in and of itself, this 16-year-old girl who was never trained in any of the art of war. She was never trained how to do battle, never trained in tactics, but she enjoyed so much success on the battlefield. And it shouldn't be surprising to us when you have Saint Michael, who's kind of like the head general of all the armies in heaven, like the angelic host. When he's whispering battle tactics into the ear of someone, you would think that we shouldn't be surprised that they would come out the victor more often than not. But doing all of that, right, it's this very interesting situation where she heard the voice of God telling her to do something so incredible, something so out of the ordinary, yet she happily takes up that mantle. As much as the odds seem against her, she was more than willing to do what the Lord had asked her to do. I think back of Abraham in the Old Testament, right? Leave your country and your homeland and go to the place that I'm telling you. Abraham leaves everything, right? He packs up everything that he can, and he goes to this country that he had no idea where it was. He just followed the Lord's voice telling him to go there. And St. Joan of Arc did very much the same thing with approaching the king, with taking control of the armies, with driving out the English while she could. And in the end, right, heaven never betrayed her. Heaven kept its word to her. Heaven kept her safe. But those who she was serving, right, the king and his generals, they're the ones who betrayed her and who allowed her to fall into English hands, where she was ultimately burned at the stake. But even in her trials, if you look at those transcripts, you can see this very deep and simple faith that this young woman had. Her answers, there were theologians that spent many months trying to stump her, but the answer she gave, so simple, yet so correct. And they couldn't get her on any of the questions, and they finally just decided to kill her and be done with the whole situation. But we find in St. Joan of Arc really an example of that. If someone who listens to the voice of God, it doesn't take someone of noble birth, it doesn't take someone who's rich, it doesn't take someone who's accomplished in this world. Following the voice of God and what God is telling us to do, where God is leading us, it's for each and every one of us, no matter where we are in life. We should look to St. Joan of Arc. We should pray to her, ask for her help, especially when things seem insurmountable or when the Lord asks us to do something very difficult. But what great things can happen when we listen to the Lord. In the end, the French ended up driving out the English out of their country, and Catholicism was preserved in that country, even though St. Joan of Arc gave her life to see that through. But she enjoys her eternal reward, and her eternal reward will also be enjoyed by all of those who also listen to the voice of God, who also have that great trust in God, enough trust to put themselves out there, enough trust to put themselves and their own lives on the line to do His will and whatever He's asking them to do. So become another Joan of Arc. Right? Be someone who listens to God, who's quick to do His will, who listens carefully to God. Right? This is the example for each and every one of us, and this is the example that if we follow, will lead us into heaven. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.